Who is James Oyola? See, I grew up in a single parent home in the state of New Jersey, and one thing I remember the most about my childhood is that we moved around a lot. This carried over up until my adolescent years. See, from the ages of 14 to 19, I went to 3 high schools and 2 colleges in 5 years, and they were all in different states. An amazing time for a teenager, and man, one that had so many great benefits. I got to learn about different cultures, meet people from all over the East Coast, and really learn about myself. But there was also a downside. What started as a defense mechanism to protect me from the streets turned into a self-absorbed way of living. Life became about me. I grew to be very prideful, and the world revolved around me. I lived that way for the next few years of my life up until the age of 22, when everything would change forever. Within the same year, I had experienced my first relational heartbreak that really hurt me in my core. And I also found out that I was going to become a father for the first time, something that I literally prayed about from the age of 11 or 12 years old. I was at a crossroad, a mixed bag of emotions. I was depressed, I was confused, I was scared, I was even suicidal. God provided me with 2 options. Option number one, I can keep living the way I was living, self-absorbed and self-focused, all about me. Or I could take on this new responsibility and live a life that was greater than myself, to actually live for someone other than James Oyola. So I chose option number two. Like any young father to be, I had to get a job. And so I worked odd jobs for the next few years. And about the age of 26, I landed my very first corporate job. I loved it. I dressed the part, I looked the part, I talked the part. I made the necessary connections to getting good with the leadership team because I obviously wanted to grow and advance in the company. And then the day came. There was a supervisor position opening, and I wanted to take a shot at it. So I got an interview. I was so excited. I walked into that interview with high confidence. I thought that I had already done the work to secure my position. The interview was going well. My personality and my character and charisma was on full display. And then everything changed. He asked me a question about critical thinking, one that caused me to lay out an action plan for how I would achieve a result. And I didn't answer it properly. I did my best, and we had a few more questions, and then the interview ended. And I walked out of that interview not feeling the same way that I walked in. My confidence was lower, and I left a little bit more perplexed. 3 days later, I get an email. I'm excited. I'm not sure. I'm clammy in my palms. I open the email, and the first words hit me in the face. Mr. Oyola, thank you for interviewing. We regret to inform you that you have not been selected for the supervisor position. I was crushed. This was the first time in my life that my personality on full display did not get me the results that I wanted. And once again, I found myself in depression. I found myself not knowing what to do. See, up until this point in my life, I had always been told that I was destined for greatness. I had always been told, it was spoken over me, that I had a purpose that was great. But I had not lived that up until then. I underachieved. In the same job, about a month later, I ended up sitting in a training class. The corporate trainer, her name was Michelle, taught me about a term that would also go on to change my life and serve as the backbone of my leadership philosophy. That term was emotional intelligence. Jim Rohn, who is the mentor of Tony Robbins, once talked about a phrase that you and I hear often. The phrase that goes something like this: you take care of me, and I'll take care of you. But Mr. Rohn had an issue with the way it was framed, and he felt that it can be delivered a little bit more effectively. And so he proposed something that sounds like this. He said, how about this? I'll take care of me for you, and you take care of you for me. When I learned about emotional intelligence, that was the beginning of me taking care of me for those around me. That was my introduction to purpose-filled living. It was the catalyst that I needed, first learning about fatherhood, to really understand that my purpose on this earth is greater than myself. So I started to take personal inventory. I started to dig within my own heart as I learned more about emotional intelligence, to identify the blockages I had within me that were preventing me from reaching my full potential. Fast forward about 5 years later, and I land my first big time position. I was a director of a company, and I was so excited. And by the end of my first week, I realized that there was a blessing in disguise that I didn't get that supervisor job years before. Had I would have gotten it, I would have fumbled it. I would have failed. I was not equipped, and I was ill prepared. When I got my director role, I was just observing how high-level leadership dealt with entry-level employees. And one thing that I noticed is there was a gap in communication. I noticed the way people treated each other. And I wanted to introduce the introspection that I had learned. I wanted to introduce emotional intelligence. So I began to work with my team with the permission of my bosses. And I'm here to tell you today that if you seek change in your organization, your team will change, your company will change, and by virtue, you will change if you consider an introspective lifestyle. If you entertain the concept of emotional intelligence and do the very scared but sacred work internally to identify blockages in your heart that might be preventing you from leading effectively. As I did this, that first director role of leading 20 people turned into me leading 90 people across 3 countries, running $200 million campaigns and being entrusted with someone's business. I would not have gotten there if I did not accept the challenge to look within and to identify not so much who I am, but who I wanted to be. Thank you for listening. This is James Oyola.